Hello, welcome to Uncommon Leadership. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams. Today I'm talking with Kimberly Lowe-Williams. Kimberly is a Black female director of infrastructure and site reliability with over 10 years of experience as a leader and people manager. She prides herself on being a leader who empowers her team, promotes diversity, and values everyone's opinion. She's broken down barriers and challenged stereotypes, inspiring others to do the same. She is also the founder of a nonprofit that for many years provided opportunities for underrepresented individuals in the tech industry before it closed its doors following the pandemic. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you.
In your journey to seeing people as people and learning to leverage their unique gifts to best accomplish your goals, what have you struggled with recently?
Honestly, the biggest struggle has been the economy, keeping people motivated. As you know, like there has been a lot of changes, reduction in forces, customer churns, different things like that in the economy that has really greatly impacted the tech community. And managing and developing engineering managers as well as engineers, it's been a struggle. Like it's really been a struggle to keep people motivated, to kind of keep their eyes on the prize, to keep them focused. That has honestly been the biggest struggle right now. Like that is currently, and as the economy goes, these things always are circular, right? This is not the first time I've seen this in my career. It's my first time in tech, though, I will say. I wasn't around for the big bubble and all of that fun stuff. That's actually when I started in tech. So I wasn't managing humans at that time. But having to, even the pandemic, right, was a different type of struggle. But the jobs and the economy were actually going up during the pandemic. So that was a different atmosphere. The current atmosphere now, though, makes it really challenging when developers and engineers and engineering managers, especially, see that the economy out there is not supporting their career growth the way that they had hoped. Right. So trying to keep them motivated and encouraged during this time is probably definitely the current struggle that I'm dealing with.
How are you finding your way through that when you don't have the flexibility you might have had in the past to give them lots of stock options and promotions and all those typical sorts of incentives?
So I'm teaching people to be really selfish. And by that, I mean, I'm teaching them to focus on their individual personal development along whatever track that is. For like individual contributors, it's like use this time to really immerse yourself into new tech stacks, learn new skills. There's a bunch of virtual conferences and opportunities like that they can jump into. So I encourage them really this is the time where you dig in and you learn and you just think about yourself. You're like, okay, what else do I need to do? Maybe there's something non-technical. Maybe there's some non-technical skills that I have gotten feedback that I need to work on. This is the perfect time and opportunity to do that. In a lot of organizations, it's kind of what we affectionately call KTLO time, right? It's just keep the lights on. So not a bunch of spending on, all the new things, but just let's see how we optimize and make things the best we can so that we can keep churning and keep doing what we have to do. And then for like my engineering managers, it really is a really good time for them to think of professional development within leadership, which we know there's many opportunities and there's a lot of resources, right, Michael, for that type of development. So I'm teaching them to be selfish, like be selfish right now. This is kind of a slower time work wise. So use that opportunity to upskill yourself and focus. So we have a lot of those like career development conversations and finding opportunities to learn and grow.
Are you finding that everyone is jumping at this opportunity, or do you have some people who are sort of dragging their feet and saying, "This isn't what I want to focus on"?
Not really, because I'm trying to keep it open where it's an area that they find interesting. Like I said, being selfish is something that they've been maybe putting off that they've wanted to do, but they were always so busy. Another thing that I have encouraged people to do is to find more fulfillment outside of work, right? Even as like they're like I'm directing managers and I'm telling them I'm like, yeah, go do something else. Sometimes just being able to unplug and shift gears. So there's really no one who's like, nah, I don't want to care about myself right now, right? But I think a lot of people just need that nudge, and some people even need permission. Some people need permission to go ahead and to shift focus. Like it's okay to do so. So I grant them that permission.
As you give them that permission, are you finding that they all then jump at it, or are some people so used to not perceiving that permission that they need some help in figuring out what to do with that now that they have it?
Both, but usually people jump right at it. They're like, "You're right. I have been putting this out. I know what I need to do." There have been a few people, not I would say they're definitely in the minority, but I think of one individual. He just tickles my heart. And he's very ambitious, very like just very driven, and likes to figure out hard problems. He's an engineer and go there, right? And but he has been doing this for so long that the ability to just like turn off is really difficult. So I have a lot of coaching conversations because honestly, like I partner with this individual. He reports to me, he's in my direct reporting line. However, he's a very senior engineer, right? So he knows exactly what he needs to be happy. But I try to coach and encourage him to do those things so that his brain gets a little bit of a break. And he does it. He does it a little bit, then he'll fall back and he'll go, I'm back into this. But at the end of the day, if he's content, even given the current economy and the opportunities that are available, knowing that, I mean, people are adults, they manage themselves pretty well. I'm just there to pitch in when the going gets tough, right? When they're kind of struggling with exactly what direction to go into.
And to help them see perspectives that they may be missing a little bit.
Yeah.
As you say, so many of us are used to doing the things they've been doing for so long that, and focusing entirely on that, that we may have missed some of the other things that we might also enjoy because they've been so focused on whatever has been our focus for so long.
Yep, exactly.
I appreciate you for your using this time of trial to help people spread out their focus and reframe it from, this is a tough time, there's nothing I can do for you, sorry, to this is a time where we can't do what we're used to doing, so let's readjust our focus to all the other things this lets us do that may have been more challenging to prioritize in the times of the past.
Yeah, fortunately and unfortunately, I have a lot of experience in having to do that, right? So we use our life lessons, our professional lessons, and we try to use it to encourage other folks. So that's what I try to do.
Your teams are blessed to have you leading them.
Oh, thank you. One day you'll have to interview one of them and see what they say.
That sounds great. Let's follow up with that.
Right.
Hook me up with them and we'll make it happen.
Okay.
So we started with what you're struggling with recently. What's something that has surprised you recently?
Surprised. I'm very, very rarely surprised, I'll be honest. Let's see. But what has surprised me? It's so I have been a bit surprised at the reaction of tech companies to this ever-changing economy. Um, the decisions that we're making as to how to manage it and how to handle it has surprised me. Like we've seen, a large amount of layoffs and a lot of change occurring at companies of all scale. How they choose to retain their employees and who they choose to retain, that has been surprising to me. It has been surprising.
How have you brought that surprise into your leadership and exploring that with the people you lead and the people up here and across your management chains?
Yeah, so starting with up is when I have the opportunity, I do voice like my opinions, even when it's tough decisions. Uh Oftentimes, like I've been impacted by and I've had to be part of like a layoff where I've had to make decisions as far as like who do we retain? How do we keep growing? What do we do after the rift? And also I've been impacted by one. In that case, even when I have been impacted by a rift, I still try to advocate for the individuals within the company that I feel deserve and would be best suited for the type of environment that would be left. And that's a consideration that I do voice to leadership. What I do encourage them is to do the spreadsheet, look at the numbers, and then let's look at the humans, right? Because there are certain people during a layoff that will be more heavily impacted for a longer period of time than some of the others. And if you look at the bottom line, you look at the number, the percentage may not be that big of a difference. It may not, as a matter of fact, most likely they'll come out ahead. The more, and just to be quite blunt, like the more expensive employees, the ones who are more senior, who have, the fancy titles, and they can usually pivot a bit faster. They usually have a little bit more of a nest egg. They usually have a little bit more foundation. They can make it and survive through a layoff a bit longer than someone who's kind of in the middle of their career, right? Who's still trying to look for those opportunities. And the truth is, and when a company is not necessarily doing so well, and this is when I talk to my peers or my directs, what I do encourage them is that this presents a very unique opportunity for your individual career growth. I know because I've been there, right? I speak a lot from experience, where you look around and the department has been sliced. It does present itself with a lot of opportunities for you to get some cross-functional skills, for you to take on more of a leadership role, for you to kind of show up in a way that you may not have had the opportunity before, just because there were a whole bunch of people, right? So it does present its own unique opportunity. So I do encourage people who actually are making that decision, and when I get the opportunity to be part of that decision, to consider the humans and not just the number. So that's kind of how I deal with it. And I don't see that happening across a lot of tech companies. They're just like, you know, and I know it takes a bit more time and it takes some consideration, but I think for when you have that big of a change, that impactful of a change, that everyone should stop and think about those things before acting.
I've seen those distinct differences as well, where some companies are
Yeah.
just applying some perhaps arbitrary formula across defining who will be let go, where other companies are taking a much more human focused approach. I remember one case where one of the individual contributors had let their manager know that they were going to be leaving the company. They found another job. And
Mhm.
the manager went to tell their manager because this was a key person on the team. So it was going to have big implications across much broader than just that one team. And their manager said, let me talk to my manager. Because it turned out a few levels above that individual contributor, they all knew that there were layoffs coming. And what they did for this person is they said, if you can give us another couple of weeks, we'll actually lay you off instead of you just leaving, and then you get the whole layoff package.
Oh, wow.
Like that is a super human focused, caring approach to layoffs and people leaving and just people management in general.
For sure. Yeah. That speaks highly of a company that you can go that many levels up and they're like, let's let's do this. Let's do what I
Yeah.
would consider the right thing. So
right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
very high.
that's one of the most heartwarming stories around reorganizations that I've ever heard or witnessed to us.
I know so many words for it.
Yeah, how else are you helping people through the trauma of all the crazy things that are happening in tech these days?
By making myself available, to be honest. Uh, so I blog about it, I talk about it, I write about it, I get on Zoom calls and talk to people about it. So just making myself available as a resource, as a person who has lived through it, always goes through it, comes out on the other side of it, has to deal with it from a few different vantage points. I try to make myself available because at the end of the day, like, the harsh reality is we can't change what happens and we can't necessarily control all the things, but we can at least be there to support each other and have those conversations and help what we can. Like, I pass resumes and, but I've been doing that for a very long time at this point, where it's kind of like, I'm not a recruiter, I'm not someone who does job placement, but I will help people find jobs whenever I can. So that's my contribution to it.
And is that maybe one of your biggest wins currently? Is
My biggest win professionally, outside of my almost 30-year marriage and 4 beautiful children, my biggest win professionally, honestly, has been my work through the Difference Engine. So you mentioned, like, in the intro, that I founded a nonprofit. Well, through that nonprofit, I had over 200 apprentices come through my doors and find opportunities within tech to basically change their lives. And I get to see the fruits of that on LinkedIn when they post these updates saying they got a new job or they are now doing this and they're doing that. These people came from all types of different backgrounds, like different careers. Some people came, like, the funniest one for me was I had an accountant who became a software developer, and what we really worked through more than anything was the cultural shock. Like, the difference in work environments, working in a banking, accounting type background and then coming into tech. It was hilarious. So, but just watching people come from that, or people who literally were just working at a fast food place that were so smart and were able to do things I can only dream that I would ever be able to do. Like, they came out of there and they took like one programming class and did some online courses and they could code. Like, they were good. Like, they were really good programmers without any formal education, but they did not know how to pivot their career, how to make that difference. And then to see them, like, all I did was literally put all these people together and provide a community for them to work in and some opportunity to work on, some web applications. They did the rest. So just to watch that, you just create a environment for people to grow and to watch them grow, like, that has to date been my biggest win. And I feel like I've had some really good professional wins, that maybe would look good on a shelf. Like, I can get some trophies and all that kind of fun stuff, but nothing for me really beats watching and knowing that, over 200 humans came through that program and are now, working in a career that has changed their lives and the lives of their families. That's my biggest win.
I can see that through your
Yeah.
career and what you post about on LinkedIn and other places that has been a through line for everything that you've done, probably through your entire life, I would hazard a guess.
Well, I don't know about my entire life, but surely after 30.
You may not have been as conscious as you are now that that's what you're doing. I bet you had a strong focus on that throughout your life. It seems so central to who you are.
It definitely is.
So now you understand how important this is to you. When did you first start recognizing that this might be a key thing for your life?
I would have to say when it changed my life, like changing my career and focusing on something that I was always passionate about, but a little bit too afraid to do, really gave me the hindsight to say, well, if I could do this, clearly other people could do this. Just getting over that fear of it, right? So for example, like I did not even begin my professional technical career until I was in my early 30s. I had already I had other careers or jobs that I pursued as an adult. Before that, I was a real estate agent. I worked in retail. I managed sales departments, all types of, weird random stuff like that. Again, mom of four, so that kept me a little busy. But it wasn't until my early 30s that I actually finished college, got my degree in computers that I had been trying to get since 1995, but was deferred for a bunch of various reasons. The most impactful to me was fear. Like, fear was the biggest thing that stopped me in the beginning. And it was because I was different. I walked into a classroom of people who no one looked like me, no one spoke like me. Everyone had more, well, not everyone, but most people had more experience than me, even going into college. Right. So that was super intimidating. And I was just like, well, maybe this isn't the right thing for me. Although I had loved computers since third grade, and I knew the moment I sat down, like I think almost every computer engineer, programmer, developer will say this. Something happened, in when they were young, and they're just like, oh, this is my life, right? This I can connect with for whatever reason. Technology, and just especially from a user's perspective, was just very intuitive to me, and I could figure a lot of the things out. I had never officially programmed, although I grew up with like DOS as a system. So if you touched the computer, you basically were programming it because we didn't have a graphical interface. But I just fell in love with them. Like I knew this was a thing, but I didn't know anyone who did it. Like I had no type of like mentors or professional examples that I could see of other people doing it. But that didn't thwart me. I was like, this is what I need to do. But what did intimidate me was the actual walking into the, you know, after high school, walking into college and saying, this is what I'm going to do. And people kind of looking at me really weird. And the lack of collaboration and the ability to jump right in. So I just procrastinated because, when we're afraid of doing something, we tend to procrastinate, we delay, we put it off. And I did that for years until finally I got to a point in my life where I did have my children. I was married and we were living in poverty, to be quite frank. Like, and I had never lived in poverty in my life. I did not grow up poor. This was just as an adult, I discovered it. And I was like, this is not okay. I was like, this is something has to change. And it was just that drive to provide for my family and to provide a better life that got me over my fear. And then once I got over the fear and I really immersed myself in it, I got my degree, I got my first job, in tech out of college. And it just was like a no brainer at this point. I was just like, oh my God, this is what I should have been doing. And I want to do more. So that pushed for me to find even more technical opportunities because those were really hard to come by as well at that point. And the big thing, and this is the one thing that I always taught, like at the Difference Engine, was just be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's a big saying now, but it's the truth. Because when you come from a different background and you walk into a room full of people who maybe have a little bit more experience, or even just have a better ability to collaborate with the people are there because they're more familiar, they know each other, or they just, they look alike, they sound alike, they have similar backgrounds. It's harder to just engage. But my biggest thing is always just do it anyway. It's worth it. Just do it anyway. And so once I did that and I really started to push for my own career, journey, then it all started to kind of fall together. It was, I mean, I say fall together, but that really did inspire me to say, okay, everybody, let's go. Like, you can do this too. Like, this is, this is attainable, this is achievable. You just have to figure out what part of it you want to do and how much you're willing to, commit to get there. And there's always, if one path within technology, there are many paths, right? There's not just the one thing. You don't have to just be a software engineer. You don't just have to. And that's actually how I ended up into like more of a DevOps SRE type of background, because I did like a lot of administration and analyst work and things like that require you to think a little bit differently than just write a program. So just exploring that, and I've gotten people into even project management within tech, or TPMs or Scrum Masters, or whatever the thing is that most resonates with their skill set and what they're willing to kind of put their time into doing, what's interesting to them. And I just say go for it. Like, I just really encourage people to just keep going.
100%.
Yeah.
We
That was a
covered,
long story. That was a long story to get to that.
I love a long story, so this is great. And our whole conversation today has been great. Kimberly, what else should I ask you?
What else should you ask me? Uh, you can ask me what I'm doing next.
What are you doing
Yeah.
next?
So, actually, currently, and hopefully in the future, I'm looking to keep moving up the engineering leadership ladder. So as you've heard me talk about like my drive to try to help people progress along their career, one of the things that has concerned me was like not losing my technical chops, which I think everyone talks about, how that's a struggle to balance technical skills when you're going into more of a leadership role, because you definitely want to give people the room to grow and to do the work. So executing is not something that I've been doing a whole lot of. And that really, like, that has bugged me for years. Like, that really, really bugged me for years. So I had to at one point accept either that because I did say, and I've said this ever since I started in this career, like, I started again as an adult with a family. I didn't have the time, the energy, or the wherewithal to dive really deep into deep technical subjects and spend hours upon hours building outside of work, outside of the classroom, doing all these extra projects, contributing to open source, doing all. I was like, that's not my reality, right? But I have had the foresight to learn how to manage and lead humans. So what's next for me is to dig deeper into the thing that brings me joy. And that even though it does come at a cost of saying, I'm not going to dive even deeper into, more technical subjects, I'm going to always keep my finger on the pulse, of course, because it's interesting. And I just like to nerd out about that stuff sometimes. But I realize that me nerding out about it, and then someone who that's their only job nerding out about it, is completely different. And I love and accept that, because that's the person that I want to partner with. Like, those are the people that I want to work with. So at this point in my career and in my development, I am looking at developing myself, past the director level into executive level roles, because I think having a seat at the table is going to be crucial as these companies go through all types of changes. And this, like, what has happened now in our economy has really, to me, shown a light on that. Like, it's telling me, if you're not at the table, they're not going to act any differently. Things are not going to change. So, like, it's a hard decision, and I've grappled with it for probably half a decade, to be honest, trying to decide, because I felt like I needed to validate myself so much within the technical industry that I needed to know more, learn more. And I've kind of, at this point, I'm like, forget that. Forget that, because it's a distraction for me at this point, because we have so much bigger problems. We have bigger problems in this industry and there's tens of thousands, of hundreds of thousands probably, of developers who can solve the technical problem. The bigger problem that we have is having technical leaders who understand how to lead people, who see people as people, right? And understand how to motivate, how to lead, how to do it empathetically, but firmly, in a way that actually gets stuff done. So that's kind of That's my focus. So that's what I'm doing next.
Can't wait. When we get to a world where all of our leaders are people like you, I have no concerns about where we're going.
It can happen. It can definitely happen.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
With you on the way, it can't help but happen.
Yeah, and I have a kid in college who's getting a computer science degree, so I'm working on it.
That's great. We'll infiltrate from the bottom.
Well, it was right. It'll be a Williams takeover.
You would like to talk with people. Tell us more about that. How do you
Yeah,
want people to
so
connect with you, and what do you want to talk with them about?
yes. So I do a lot of, I have a newsletter called Unsolicited Career Advice because I'm like, I'm going to give it. Here you go, take it. But I have unsolicited career advice, giving a lot of the tips and tricks of leadership. It's specifically talking to leaders, but it can apply to whether you're a people manager or you're just a leader within your role. Tips and tricks on how to do that better, ideas, and I would really appreciate like being able to talk to people. Like I have people that I mentor, that I just colleagues that I talk to, that I bounce ideas off with. I read profusely like leadership books like crazy. And a lot of that information and a lot of that sharing, I like to kind of just say, okay, but this is what it feels like in the real world. Let's have that conversation. And I love to coach and talk to people individually about their problems and some of the things that they're seeing at work or even like their own professional growth, what to do next. And once you've decided what you want to do next, then what, right? So I have, I'm available, of course, on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm open to doing like live Q&A sessions. A couple people have asked me, but I'm like, well, if more people are interested in having a live Q&A with me, then I'm willing to do that. Like I said earlier, what I'm doing right now is making myself available so that we all can try to get through these times together, because I think that's the only way that we'll get through them.
That sounds great. And I'll have links for all that in the show notes. And with all my curious audience and everyone else in the LinkedIn world, we got to make this happen.
We gotta make this happen. I've just never been one of those people who just I'm not good at playing the victim. For better or worse, right? That's kind of can be, it has the good and a bad side to that. But I just don't like to stand around and talk about, oh, these are all the problems and these are all the things, and just do nothing. When I possibly can, I try to do something, even if it's small, even if it only helps, one person or two people. I think that makes a difference. So yeah, I think folks will just, we can make a big difference if we all just kind of mobilize and talk about it. Like, so first step is to talk about it, and then we can start to do something about it.
Absolutely. What would you like to leave our audience with today, Kimberly?
Let's see what to leave with. I would like to leave people, especially people within the technology industry or any technical field, with the not so uncommon idea that there are more to smart people than what they can do technically. I would like for people to really consider and look holistically at the folks around them, like the people that you're working with. Don't just, you know, they're just not cogs in a machine. They're humans. Humans are full people and need to develop in different areas. So I think for a number of years, we focused exclusively in engineering on what it is that you can do as opposed to who it is you can be. And I would like for people to focus, especially, and I'm so used to talking to other, leaders and managers and things like that. But I think it's important for everyone, even if you're working collaboratively with a peer and they may not show up in a way that you feel is, you know, something that you like. You may not find it pleasant, or you may just talk to them, like talk to them as a human. There's a way to do it professionally. but realize that you're working with humans, not robots at this point. Even the humans are programmed in the robots. I know it was like, oh, but AI, those are humans feeding this robot, right? Feeding artificial intelligence what it needs to know and say and think and feel. So recognize that we work together and that the only way that we can strive and get through any of these things, like even in the best of times, right, is that we still recognize that we're working with humans and we have to be realistic about our expectations. We need to be a bit more empathetic about how we collaborate and how we work together. And then we just like be honest and open about what it is we want to get done and who we are and set a good example. That is kind of what I would like to leave people with.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you, audience, for joining us today. Please let us know, how is this land for you? How can we help you? Kimberly and I want to know by email and in her live Q&A that your emails will help us create. Thank you and have a great day. Thanks for joining us on Uncommon Leadership today. If you found these stories interesting, inspiring, and illuminating, sign up for my newsletter. Hop over to uncommonteams.com and use the form at the top of every page. You'll be the first to know about every new episode of Uncommon Leadership. You'll also discover how you can build uncommon teams. If you'd like to chat about doing that yourself, email me, michael@uncommonteams.com, or use the contact form on my website. Thanks so much.